You know what's crazy? Black men get judged no matter what they do. Dress sharp, and suddenly you're trying to be white. Dress casual, and you're lazy or reckless. For decades, every generation has faced the same criticisms, and nothing's changed. But here's the thing, your clothes don't define your worth. Respect, influence, and success come from your actions, your discipline, your ambition, not the fabric on your back. In this video, I'm breaking down why appearance alone isn't enough, why authenticity matters, and how young black men can step into real respect. Stick around, because this is about more than style. It's about identity, effort, and what it really takes to be respected. I get it, there's a lot of criticism aimed at young black men these days. People talk about them as if they are all violent or reckless, and honestly, I've heard the same things before. I'm 44 now, so I remember being part of that conversation 20 years ago. Back then, everyone was judging my generation. And now, I find myself listening to the same critiques, just aimed at the next generation. I recently saw a clip that really made me pause. Maybe I'm too woke, but I didn't find it funny at all. And honestly, I didn't find it funny a few years ago either, when young black men started dressing up in suits and standing around, thinking it was making a statement. I just don't get it. Why do so many men, and black men in particular, feel this constant pressure to define themselves by their clothing rather than by their actions, achievements, or character? It's a question worth asking because, if you really look at it, slipping on a suit, a crisp dress shirt, or a quarter-zip sweater doesn't automatically make someone successful, productive, or even admirable. Clothing, by itself, is a surface-level statement. It's a costume. When a man dresses a certain way, it's as if he's silently saying, "Look at me, I can present myself in the way society deems respectable." But what does that really communicate? Is it confidence, intelligence, ambition, or something else entirely? Or is it merely a way of signaling conformity to an external standard rather than reflecting who he truly is? The more you examine it, the more it becomes clear that this obsession with outward appearance often carries a hidden irony. On one hand, men are striving to appear competent, successful, or even aspirational. On the other, by relying so heavily on clothing to define themselves, they risk erasing a deeper sense of personal identity. It's like they are attempting to wear the badge of success without necessarily earning the substance behind it. A suit does not teach discipline, ambition, or resilience. A quarter-zip doesn't demonstrate creativity, intelligence, or integrity. When the focus is on what you wear rather than what you do, the risk is that your outer appearance becomes more important than your inner reality. In many cases, the choice of clothing, particularly for black men, carries a cultural and historical dimension. Wearing a suit, a tie, or a certain socially acceptable style can be interpreted as imitating white culture. That may sound harsh, but the context matters. Society has long defined professionalism, respectability, and success using markers rooted in predominantly white institutions and aesthetics. Black men, historically marginalized and often excluded from these spaces, might adopt these symbols as a way to gain credibility, earn recognition, or feel socially validated. But in doing so, they can inadvertently reinforce the same systems that originally excluded them. By measuring success through clothing instead of action, a man risks reducing himself to a stereotype. The black man who looks the part but whose real accomplishments remain unexamined or unappreciated. It's ironic because the very act intended to assert respectability can simultaneously erode authenticity. When you focus on how you appear rather than who you are or what you achieve, you may gain surface-level approval while losing connection with your own identity. People may admire the sharp suit or the carefully curated outfit, but admiration for style is not the same as respect for substance. You may get nods for looking successful, but those nods can feel hollow if the admiration isn't matched by acknowledgement of real effort, skill, or character. Over time, this reliance on clothing as a measure of worth can trap a man in a cycle of external validation, where the approval of others becomes more important than personal growth, integrity, or meaningful achievement. Furthermore, this emphasis on appearance can create tension within communities. Black men, for example, may be criticized both for dressing too fancy or trying to assimilate into mainstream cultural norms, and at the same time, criticized for not dressing well enough. This double bind reflects broader societal contradictions. The very markers of respectability are often defined externally, without consideration for individual expression, context, or cultural nuance. When clothing becomes a proxy for success, it's almost impossible to escape judgment. A man may be working diligently, building skills, and contributing meaningfully to his family or community. Yet if he doesn't visually signal success in the prescribed way, some will overlook his accomplishments entirely. This phenomenon also highlights a deeper societal challenge: the conflation of image and identity. Clothes are meant to express personality, style, and sometimes status. But when they become the main vehicle for defining one's worth, they overshadow the qualities that truly matter. Competence, intelligence, ambition, discipline, empathy, creativity. These are the things that define a person's value, yet they are invisible unless they are paired with action and results. Focusing on clothing without investing in these deeper qualities can create a disconnect between perception and reality, leaving men vulnerable to both internal and external criticism. It's not that style or presentation is unimportant. Looking polished, intentional, and put together can be empowering and can open doors that might otherwise remain closed. The problem arises when clothing becomes a substitute for effort, ambition, or integrity. A suit or stylish outfit should complement who you are, not define you entirely. Real success and respect come from what you do, how you think, and how you treat others. Style can enhance perception, but substance builds lasting influence. Ultimately, this issue is about more than clothes. It's about authenticity, identity, and how Black men navigate a society that constantly judges them on appearance as much as, or more than, action. It's about recognizing that outward symbols of success, suits, quarter zips, luxury items, are superficial unless they reflect real effort, achievement, and personal growth. It's about rejecting the notion that you have to mimic someone else's standard to be taken seriously, and instead building a life that commands respect because of what you do, not what you wear. In the end, men don't need to define themselves by the fabric on their backs. True respect, influence, and self-worth come from substance. When Black men focus on actions, values, and achievements first, clothing becomes an enhancement rather than a mask. That's when appearance aligns with reality, and that's when authenticity shines. I saw this young Black woman reacting to the quarter-zip trend, sipping coffee, talking about how ridiculous these men looked. She critiqued their outfits and appearance, but at the same time, she herself had a two-toned blonde and dark brown hairstyle, kind of like Rottweiler spots, if I'm being honest. I'm not trying to be harsh, it just stood out to me that it's this constant cycle. Every generation of young Black men gets judged for how they look, while the critics rarely reflect on their own choices or biases. And that's the part that really makes me think, are we focusing on the wrong things? Shouldn't the conversation go deeper than just appearances? Some women will tell Black men that they are trying to be white just for dressing well or acting ambitious. But honestly, the more things change, the more they stay the same. If you grew up in the Black community, you know how it goes. God forbid you tried to be smart, go to college, or hold down a job. Especially if you came from the inner city. People would talk down to you just for trying to be decent and responsible. That was true when I was growing up, and in many ways, it's still true now. It's a strange double standard. If a man isn't working, isn't ambitious, or doesn't have his life together, he's labeled a bum. But if he tries to get his life together, suddenly that's a problem too. I want to be clear, not all Black women act this way, but there's definitely a layer of hypocrisy here. That's why I want to take a moment to give credit to young Black men who are choosing to do things differently, men who are striving to look respectable, cultivate ambition, and pursue something greater for themselves. These men are actively deciding to step out of old patterns and challenge stereotypes, even in the face of criticism. They are attempting to craft identities that reflect effort, discipline, and intentionality, rather than just conforming to the limited expectations that society, or even their own communities, might have placed on them. This is no small feat, because it often means pushing against long-standing norms, facing judgment, and redefining what it means to be a successful Black man in the modern world. One reason some women push back against this shift is what can be described as marketability. A man who presents himself well, someone who is clean, confident, ambitious, and stylish, suddenly becomes highly desirable, not just within his immediate community, but across broader circles. He's no longer only appealing to the women in his neighborhood or social group. He starts attracting attention from women of other races, cultures, and backgrounds. While this should be celebrated as a positive outcome of self-improvement, it can sometimes provoke insecurity in those who feel threatened by the newfound freedom or visibility of Black men who are achieving more and standing taller than before. The reality is that a Black man who can balance ambition, respectability, and authenticity is breaking through a lot of boxes and stereotypes that society has historically imposed. The hood image, with its associations of chaos, danger, or irresponsibility, no longer fully applies. The cool guy persona, often rooted in bravado or surface-level charm, gains an entirely new dimension. He is black, he is confident, and he is clearly putting in the work to make his life better. These men are showing that you can be fully black, embrace your culture, and still operate at a high level of professionalism, self-discipline, and social sophistication. This shift challenges outdated narratives and expectations. For generations, black men were often told to either conform to a narrow image of masculinity rooted in hypermasculinity and street credibility or face judgment for trying to rise above it. The moment a man pursues education, builds a career, or dresses sharply, he risks criticism for trying too hard or acting white, even though he is simply trying to take control of his life. This contradiction has existed for decades. Black men are expected to succeed, but not in ways that challenge the comfort zones of those around them. They are expected to be ambitious, yet ambitious men are sometimes accused of being unrelatable or overly polished. It's also important to recognize that this pattern isn't universal, but it is common enough to have a cultural resonance. There will always be women and men who resist seeing black men outside of the boxes they are accustomed to. When a young man presents himself well, it disrupts the familiar dynamics. It creates cognitive dissonance for some because the man they encounter doesn't fit the stereotype they expect. He's intelligent, disciplined, and self-assured. He's someone who has mastered aspects of his life that, in previous generations, may have seemed unattainable or outside reach. For some, that discomfort manifests as criticism, accusations that he's silly, pretentious, or trying too hard. Yet, for every person who reacts with negativity, there are far more who admire and respect the effort. Young black men who step into this space become examples of what is possible. They redefine the narrative of what it means to be black and male in a world that constantly seeks to narrow those definitions. They send a message that ambition, responsibility, and self-presentation are not acts of betrayal, but acts of self-determination. They show that it is possible to pursue success, embrace style and sophistication, and still remain authentic and connected to their identity. Furthermore, this evolution matters beyond personal relationships or dating dynamics. When young black men push themselves to achieve, it shifts cultural perceptions and inspires those around them. It challenges older stereotypes that have long limited opportunities and expectations. By modeling ambition, accountability, and self-respect, these men create pathways for younger generations to envision broader possibilities. They demonstrate that black identity is not a limitation but a foundation from which to build something meaningful. At the end of the day, celebrating these men isn't about elevating a select few, it's about acknowledging the courage it takes to step into spaces where judgment, criticism, and scrutiny are constant companions. It's about validating the effort required to balance ambition with authenticity and respectability with identity. These men are more than their appearance. They are the sum of their actions, choices, and resilience. And while criticism may continue to exist, it is increasingly outweighed by recognition, admiration, and respect from those who understand that true value comes from what you do, not just how you look. In short, young black men striving to be their best selves deserve acknowledgement and support. They are redefining what it means to be black, ambitious, and respected. They are proving that respectability, identity, and self-expression are not mutually exclusive. And as they continue to break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and build better lives for themselves, the world begins to see black men in a fuller, richer, and more authentic light. When you present yourself well, you start appealing to all kinds of women, not just in your neighborhood, but across the diaspora. From my experience here in Uganda, I can tell you that many black women who didn't grow up in the typical US environment find a man who dresses well incredibly attractive. I'm talking about beautiful, confident women from the States, the Caribbean, Africa, even Colombia, who respect a man with ambition and style. They see it as a mark of confidence and self-respect. Yet, back home, some people still want to put black men in a box, calling them trying to be white just for dressing sharp or acting responsible. The irony is, once you step out of that box and start presenting yourself as competent, suddenly some women feel threatened. Their dating options narrow, and then, magically, you become the bad guy. That's not about you, it's about insecurity. Some women will cling to outdated standards, expecting men to remain sloppy, pushy, or otherwise fit into narrow, limiting stereotypes. They hold on to an idea of what a black man should look like or act like, often based on old cultural assumptions rather than the reality of ambition and self-improvement. But the truth is, many black men are done living up to those limited expectations. They are no longer content with performing for approval based on outdated notions of identity or coolness. Dressing like a pookie or trying to fit a narrow, reckless image won't get you anywhere in life. On the other hand, showing competence, ambition, and self-respect opens doors to opportunities, recognition, and even deeper, more meaningful relationships. And for those women who aren't interested in men who strive for more, they aren't missing anything worth having. The men who pursue growth and responsibility are simply looking for people who value the same qualities. This dynamic becomes even clearer when you understand that many black men, especially those from under-resourced or challenging neighborhoods, are often late bloomers. I grew up in Del Paso Heights, and I saw firsthand how discouraging it could be for young men who didn't immediately fit into the social hierarchies around them. The spotlight often went to athletes, the flashy, hood types, or men who fit the stereotypical mold of what the community expected. For young men who were quieter, studious, or simply trying to stay out of trouble, it could feel like there was no path forward. Many internalized the idea that they didn't have a real shot at life, love, or respect because they weren't hood enough to be seen, noticed, or celebrated. But here's the important part. Once a man steps outside the constraints of his immediate environment, the perspective shifts dramatically. Travel to another city, another state, or even another country, and suddenly the rules change. People respond differently. The neighborhood stereotype that once felt so suffocating doesn't follow you everywhere. Outside of that context, competence, ambition, self-discipline, and respectability are recognized and valued. The world rewards those qualities in a way that the narrow social expectations of a single community often cannot. In essence, your worth isn't defined by where you came from, what image your neighborhood has labeled you with, or whether you fit someone else's outdated ideal. Real value comes from action, persistence, and the ability to rise above limited expectations. Black men who pursue growth and responsibility are breaking out of molds that have historically restricted them, and in doing so, they create opportunities not only for themselves but for the generations that follow. Recognition, respect, and meaningful connections often await those who have the courage to step beyond the confines of their immediate surroundings and invest in competence, self-respect, and ambition. Step outside the black community, whether it's another city, another country, or even Middle America, and suddenly the dynamic changes. Women start noticing you. They show interest. Meanwhile, some of the same women who dismissed you back home, by the time they've had a child or two, their chapter is done. They got what they wanted, and that's it. When black men start seeing this reality, many find encouragement at HBCUs. Even there, you'll find plenty of black women who recognize a man who's functional, responsible, and striving. Not everything in Black America has to be dysfunctional. There are women out there who genuinely want stability, who admire a black man doing well, and want to be part of that growth. Not everyone is looking for a man hustling on the streets, getting into trouble, or living a chaotic life. Nobody has time for that. The hope here is simple. For women holding onto insecurities about men who are trying to rise, it's time to let them go. Stop projecting fear or judgment onto men who are stepping up. So, that's the takeaway. Black men working to be competent, ambitious, and responsible aren't trying to be anything they are not. They are just trying to thrive. And those who can see that and support it? That's the real connection.